Hello, welcome to my studio. Today I want to talk to you about colour, and I thought what I would do is share some of my approaches to colour, look back through my sketchbooks and just see if I can share some thoughts and some theories and some different approaches to colour. And I think the thing about colour is that it is exciting, dynamic, bewitching, magical, befuddling. It's a really complicated or interesting aspect to art making because every single colour looks different depending on what colour it's next to. So it's all about colour relationships. And some of the things that you can learn are around theory, and perhaps I'll share some theory, but there's also about personal preference and how colour makes us feel and our own personal relationships to colour. And I think that's one of the magical things. So your colour palette and your colour preferences will be different to mine, and part of that will be our kind of cultural overlay, but part of it will also be our personality, the things that we've done and seen, and our associations and the ways that we see colour. So it's a really interesting, fascinating aspect of art making, and I think it's part of the art making process that really delights me, surprises me, and carries on intriguing me, even though I've been making art for yonks. And I can see that when I'm hopefully 95, I will still be learning things about colour. So it's a really rich, fascinating aspect of art making. Here we are. I have a real selection of sketchbook pages, colourful sketchbook pages that I enjoy and like, and I thought I would chat you through, talk to you about colour. So the very first thing I think is important to say is that taking note of the colour combinations, the colours that you like together, is an important part of the art making process. So whenever I'm looking at the art that I've made that I love, or looking at someone else's painting that I love, I'm really trying to unpick what is it in that painting that is really making me love the colours. So these are just some colour combination pages which I've pulled together. And when you're looking at your own artwork and thinking about the colour, what is it that is singing to you? And for me, it is often a really bright colour next to a muted colour. So I love those really bright, high saturation, super bright colours, but I think they just look beautiful next to a more muted shade. So a bright pink next to a grey, or that kind of bright pop of blue next to this sort of beigey colour. I just think it brings out their vibrancy and just makes the whole page feel a little bit less childlike, I think, and maybe a bit more sophisticated. This is my current sketchbook, and you can see, or one of my current sketchbooks, and you can see it is just a little bit bananas on the colour front. And I think what happens is that my colour preferences change dependent on what's happening in my life, the season, what materials I'm using. So here, a lot of these pages are made whilst I'm watching television in the evening using an ink tense pencil. And an ink tense pencil is basically a pencil that when you add a little bit of water, it kind of turns a little bit like an ink. So the materials I'm using are dictating some of the colour palette because they are super saturated and super bright. And so therefore these pages are super saturated and super bright. But I think it's also a reflection of the fact that it's very grey outside, it's winter, and I'm just bringing a little corner of my world to life with colour and pattern. And that's a lovely thing about a sketchbook, isn't it? You can just let your freak flag fly. So let's pick a page that I like and try and unpick why I like it so much. So this is a good one, I think. I like some of these colour combinations. So I know that I really love red with any combination of pink. If you look through my artwork, there's often a red and pink, pink and orange, pink and pink, pink and red. That colour combination, I just really enjoy it. It feels jubilant and exciting to me. And I can't tell you why I love it. It's just one of those colour combinations that really sing to me. Now, there is some colour theory around it. Any colours that are next to each other on the colour wheel will sit nicely, will play nicely together. So you could pick any 3 colours that sit next to each other on the colour wheel and they will look very harmonious. And now obviously pink isn't actually on this colour wheel, but it's related to purple and red. So I can see why pink and red, pink and orange, red and orange just work nicely because they are together on the colour wheel. So we might as well talk about some of the different ways in which a colour wheel can help you to think about colour. So you've probably heard of complementary colours. So the complementary colours are the ones that are opposite each other on the colour wheel. So red and green, blue and orange, purple and yellow. And they're called complementary because they're the colours that really bring out each other's best bits. So red and green together can really sing. So can purple and yellow. They really complement each other and they look really good together. And I often use red and green actually, or recently I've been using a lot of red and green. Here is a sketchbook, just a handmade sketchbook that I've been working on this week that I haven't quite finished, but you'll see a lot of the pages are red and green. So complementary colours, red and green, blue and orange, purple and yellow. There's also such a thing as a split complementary. So that's taking the 2 complementary colours, so let's just take red and green, and saying that green will also look really good next to red violet and red orange. So taking the complementary colour and looking at either of its neighbours and saying that is a colour combination that could work really well. So complementary colours and split complementary colours. The colour wheel also allows us to look at triads. So that's 3 colours that work well together. So for example, red, blue, yellow, primary colours. That's an equidistant triad on the colour wheel. So I was looking at this little quick acrylic abstract that's in my sketchbook, and I really like the colour combinations, and they're fairly much red, blue, yellow. Red, blue, yellow. So what are the other triads? So you could have orange, violet, and a blue-green. So taking any 3 colours that are equidistant on the colour wheel, they also work really well together. But when I'm working with colour, I rarely am having a strategy where I've planned out the colours I'm using in advance. I tend to start a bit like this. This is a page in progress. So I'll pick a colour, this example is a red, and I will put red all the way through one of my drawings, and then I will build up colour using a much more intuitive questioning sense. So I'll start with one colour, make sure that it's kind of in different places across the painting, so there's a unity and a continuity, and then I will say what colour would look good next to this. So I'm sort of building up these colourful pages using a patchwork. What colour would look good next to this? What colour would look good next to this? So I'm not having a strategy, but I am building up colour by colour. And of course, it's all about relationships. So as soon as you add something in, so say I added that big bit of red in, it changes everything on the pictorial plane or on the page. So it's quite interesting. So there are lots of different ways to work with colour. So another one is monochrome, so that's just one colour, which I actually really like, though you wouldn't tell from this sketchbook. There we go. Just taking a blue, or just taking a green, or just taking a red. I think it's important to take note of the colour combinations that you love, and that different colours look different depending on where they're sat and what's next to them. I think it can be useful when you're working with colours to think about the colour wheel. Any colour, any sort of 3 colours that are next to each other on the colour wheel are called harmonious or analogous colours, and they work really well together. Any colour that's opposite on the colour wheel also works well. So red and green, blue and orange, red and green, blue and orange, yellow and purple. There are also any triad of colours in any way on the colour wheel also works. So, you know, sometimes it's useful to know some of this stuff, but also it can be useful just to try things out for yourself and see what you're enjoying and see what excites you and see what colour combinations you really love. So I hope that little jaunt through some of my sketchbooks and that chat about colour was helpful in some way. Thank you so much for watching, supporting and being a lovely human being.